Good afternoon. Edmund Robinson, minister of this meeting house, and I want to welcome you to a celebration of the life of Joe Cromarty. We've come here from all walks of life, from many places near and far, and this hits us in different ways, but we're united, I think, by our affection for this man who lived among us. I want to ask you to put aside your agendas, whatever you want to do for the afternoon or the morning, your regrets, your intentions, your plans. Be with us here for the next hour. We are the community of Joe Cromarty. And let's make it a good celebration. And on a practical note, please turn off your cell phones. A human life is sacred. It is sacred in its being born. It is sacred in its living. And it is sacred in its dying. Now that I say that, I need to say that the reason we're having this celebration here had nothing to do with Joe Cromarty being a closet Unitarian Universalist. It happened that I was in his writers group and I offered the meeting house as a place to hold this. The sorrow and joy of life weave a tapestry of our individual lives as death gathers us once more into a blessed community, to bid one we have known and loved farewell and adieu, to search for life's deepest meanings, to seek the comfort and the healing women and men offer one another, to say yes to life's greatest expression, love. Love believes all things, hopes for all things, endures all things. Love never ends. At this time, we are united with the wisdom and the customs of all people in all ages. Though we are a small group of family and friends, we feel the embrace of the ageless human community. Though we are just a few, our strength and our resources are great, for they come from the deep well of all humanity. And in this spirit, we join our individual feelings and thoughts, as well as the faiths that sustain us separately, into a harmony of remembrance and affirmation. We shall celebrate Joe's living and we shall grieve Joe's dying, because we know the truth of William Blake's words, joy and woe are woven fine. Under every grief and pine runs a joy with silken twine. It is right. It should be so. We were made for joy and woe. Today we must grieve Joe's death, but we must also celebrate Joe's life. Though our grief is strong and we must mourn, we will not let the shadow of death obscure the living person who touched us many times in many ways, filling our lives with memories, meaning, and love. Let us be wise enough and let us be brave enough this afternoon to honestly remember and bravely celebrate a human life, the life that was Joe's life. So we have come together. It is good that we have come together because we need each other in empathy and consolation, and because we need each other in courage and wisdom to face Joe's death, to celebrate Joe's life, and to show our love and support for Joe's family, those who knew him best and loved him the most. It is good, right, and fitting that we have come together because a human life is sacred. It is being born, it is living, and it is dying. Joseph H. Cromarty, Jr., February 6, 1932 to February 19, 2016. I am honored to be asked to deliver this portrait of Joe. I knew him as a member of the Rising Tide Writers Group, which meets at the Brooks Library in Harwich. After he passed, the members of that group found that we feel quite possessive about him. All the emails about his passing in this memorial service have been captioned, "Our Joe." We recognize, of course, that before he was our Joe, he was your Joe. All of you have come and have known him from different places and different walks of life. Yet there was something in the intimacy of sitting around the table, each with our own manuscripts clutched in sweaty palms, nervous because we were about to expose our well-drawn or badly drawn characters to the gaze of others, who week after week were drawn in as this man, so understated in his appearance and his personal presentation, revealed acidly drawn good guys and bad guys and girls in skimpy clothing in the most wildly improbable situations with more plot twists than a braided pigtail that made us want to reach out and claim him as our own. But we didn't make him. He brought his muse and talent to the group, as seldom did any of us so much as have any suggestions for improvement. Our role was less to instruct than to appreciate. Joe was born in 1932 in Hartford, Connecticut. He had rheumatic fever as a child, which limited his athletic abilities all his life. Yet he served in the Korean War and trained as an occupational therapist. But upon his discharge, he went to commercial arts schools on the GI Bill. Can romance endure when it originates amid the bedpans of a major urban hospital? Joe and Barbara met at the Brigham, now known as Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, where she was a night nurse and he was an orderly. They courted for a year, and the marriage lasted 60 more. They moved to Maine, initially, where Joe worked at a local TV station, and their first son, Jay, came along 10 months later. They then moved back to Boston for Joe to finish his studies at the School of Practical Arts, and Ross was born. Then moved back to Portland, Maine, where Joe worked for a newspaper, and it was then that Ian and Matthew were born. But Joe had always wanted to be a cartoonist. So the family moved to Billings, Montana, so that Joe could apprentice to a cartoonist with a syndicated strip named Rick O'Shea. However, after 2 years, the couple became homesick for New England and moved back to Maine, where Joe served as an ad manager for a drugstore in Waterville. He retired at age 62, and the day after he retired, the drugstore was sold to a chain. When Barbara retired 2 years later, the couple moved to Cape Cod, and right away, Joe got involved in literary and dramatic activities. He was in the Chatham Drama Guild, as well as a group called the Harwich Senior Players, who would read plays to school groups. In addition to our Harwich Writers Group, he was in a writers group in Chatham as well. In Maine, Joe had been a founding member of the Yarmouth Rescue Squad before they were formalized EMT teams. He was also active in the JCs. In the last few years, Joe had battled several significant illnesses. Barbara knew what he was facing as a nurse and was not surprised when death took him at age 84, though she had hoped for a few more years with him. Thankfully, he died in his sleep. He simply did not wake up one morning. I asked Barbara what might sum up their 60 years of marriage, and she said, "He always made me laugh." That seems to be the universal experience of Joe, as you will hear from his sons and granddaughter in a few minutes. It was the experience of the Rising Tide Writers Group as well, and probably was the experience of those of you who knew him from dramatics. Here's a few reactions from the writers' groups. Barbara Leadham: Joe's quips made us giggle, his fictional characters made us laugh, his jokes made us guffaw, and he himself, our Joe, made us proud to be in a writing group with him. We will sorely, note the forbidden adverb, miss him. Francoise Webb: Joe's sudden departure is a great loss to our writers group. A gifted and skillful writer on numerous Wednesday mornings, Joe captured our imagination with his action-packed adventures filled with colorful and sometimes dubious characters. May he be in peace. Ed Cotler, we teased often, laughed much, shared our memories. What more can you ask of a friend? Rick Fordyce. I first met Joe at the writers group where I would hear him reading animatedly from the detective stories he was working on. As with all good detective stories, some of the characters sounded a little shady, and as he read, I imagined him looking like one of them, which is both a compliment and an accomplishment of craft. He will be missed. Sebastian Mudrick. Joe became the characters in his stories. Each came alive through his voice. Joe had let the story surround you down way before Amazon's audiobooks. Constant wordplay, humor, genius. I miss him, always will. Perhaps the loftiest perch from which to view the world is that of the absurd. The writer Albert Camus was one who took absurdity seriously. His most famous essay is about the Greek mythological hero Sisyphus, who is cursed to have to keep pushing a massive stone up to the top of a hill, only to have it roll back down to the bottom, and he has to go back down and start pushing it up again. Camus said that Sisyphus had come to realize that all effort to make the world better was like that, destined to be washed away in the tides of eternity, and in that realization, Sisyphus was happy. Joe did Camus one better. He had a keen sense of the absurd, but he didn't take it seriously. He employed it to make us laugh. Most animals live in a habitat, an environment, and evolution over a long time adapts them to that environment. Humans, in addition to their natural environments, also live in environments of words and ideas. We orient our lives to big words like goodness and truth and justice and family and love. And we are able to play with words. And the writer is able to build worlds which never were and never will be out of words, and fashion people out of words, and set them into plot lines made out of words. And you have these great overarching words I just named, like love and justice and family. And then you have a reality which, if you're paying attention, is clearly much bigger and more complex than the words we use to describe it. And the lack of fit between our ideas and expectations of the world and the way the world really turns out to be are the grounds of absurdity. And I think the best appreciation we can give to Joe is to see that he had the gift of recognizing this and putting it into concrete and memorable and truly funny characters, situations, plots, and dialogues. My own attitude towards an afterlife was best described by a lapel button I once saw, which said, "Militant agnostic. I don't know, and you don't either." Hammett called death the land from whose bourne no traveler has returned, and I don't think he was talking about the Cape Cod Canal. So I will have to logically admit the possibility that Joe is still hovering around somewhere, maybe in this very room. And if he were, I would want to say, thank you, Joe. Thank you for your wacky wit and wisdom. Thank you for your flashes of insight. Thank you for being the unique, precious mind you are. Amen. We'll sit for another musical interlude.